know, when you go into the outdoors, there are a few things you should always consider taking with you. Insect repellent, sunscreen, first aid kit. But what if you forget them? Well, I'm going to introduce you to some of the things you can find in nature's own pharmacy. This is a great one to start with. This is greater plantain. The Indians had a name for this. They called it white man's footprints because it likes to grow beside the hard-packed trails, just like the first settlers in America made. Well, we can use this for treating slow-healing wounds, and the way we use it is simply to wrap it around the wound and bind it on, and it acts like a medicinal poultice. But you have to be careful. You must wash the leaf first, because the leaf itself might be covered in harmful bacteria. This is yarrow. Now, this has been used by soldiers for hundreds of years for treating wounds. So what did they do? Well, they take the leaves, and the leaves bruised were applied as a poultice to wounds. The other thing you can do with these leaves is to rub them up. And that liberates an aromatic scent, and that rubbed on your skin acts as an insect repellent. This is meadowsweet, and if I get a headache outdoors, this is my emergency cure for it. Now, the flowers and the leaves have been used in a herbal tea to treat fevers for centuries, but it's the root I'm interested in. You can see the root's very pink and red, and if I break it, it smells just like germaline. One of these roots, chewed and swallowed, is a very good emergency cure for a headache. Now, this is a plant that everybody knows about, the dock leaf. You know, if you get stung, what do you look for? A dock leaf. But most people just take a leaf and rub it on the stings. But that can be not such a good way of treating a nettle sting, because you can break the skin. A much better way of using the dock is like this. Take several of the leaves, fold them up into a little bundle and tear them, just a little bit. Rub them between your hands and then start to squeeze. It takes a few seconds, but there comes the medicine. Now that is what you should rub on the nettle stings, and it has an almost instant soothing effect.
I've been riding horses since I was old enough to hold a rattle, but have never experienced a long-distance ride. Rising to the challenge of the Wild Boar Trail, I headed for Argyll. Day one, we leave Auchendrain on the old Drovers Road over the hills to Culnure. The second day begins in Kilmartin Glen, then on to Carnassery Castle, Crinan Beach and Dunad. All in all, 60 miles.
It really is a great way of seeing the Scottish countryside trail riding, isn't it?
It really is. I think it's one of the best, you know, it's the way to see it.
So could just about anybody come on a trail ride, or do you need to know how to ride a little?
You need to know a bit. You do need to know a bit. We can always give you lessons for a couple of days to bring you on to it, you know. If somebody's not quite sure of themselves, that's no problem at all.
So how do you go about picking a horse? I mean, what have I got to ask?
The character of you, okay, Ask's very quiet, you know, he's very calm, but he's got fire in him. He's got fire in his system. And you have too. You can tell that.
Nobody's ever said that about me before. For trail riding, do you find the horses have to be quite brave-hearted, adventurous?
They have to be, yes. Yeah, you don't want any horses that are wussies or wimps. They've really got to be prepared to. Yeah, we can do this. We can go up this. We can do it.
On a trail ride, you need food and drink to keep you going, warm clothes just in case, and the chance to rest those aching muscles. Our final stop on this long, hot summer's day was the beautiful Loch Awe and the ruins of Culnure Chapel.
This old chapel, it dates back to St. Columba.
It's very ornate, isn't it?
Isn't it
the
lovely?
Work here.
It's lovely, isn't it? Should we jump off and have a look round?
I'm ready to stretch my legs a bit. Whoa!
Oh, I know, we need to, don't we?
Ooh. There's quite a few sort of tombstones lying about. I mean, there's a couple over here.
Legend has it they're actually from the Knights Templar from the Crusades, and that's why you see all the engravings on the top of them.
A few miles on and the end of the day. Our horses, Ask and Sif, who are mother and son, have gone all day fuelled by their breakfast of equine muesli. Supper will be the same, and while they chilled out, we headed for a local hostel to spend the night. A new day, and the chance to become even better acquainted with my four-legged friend. By 9 o'clock the next morning, we were in Kilmartin Glen, also known as the Valley of the Kings, the site of some of the most important relics of ancient Scotland.
I love the way that these standing stones just seem to almost pop up out of the Scottish countryside.
These date back to Neolithic times. You're looking at these being 500 odd years older than the pyramids were.
Such an ancient thing.
Yeah, they are ancient. But we've got something, the next thing we're going to on the trail, much, much younger. We're going to have a look at that, shall we?
Okay, lead on.
Okay, thank you. Come on, good girl.
There's a real thrill riding a horse which is having as much fun as I am. Believe me, if they didn't want to jump and gallop, they wouldn't. When push comes to shove, they're bigger than we are.
This castle was actually built in the mid-1500s. This was built for Bishop Carswell, and it was actually here that he translated the Bible into the Gaelic, because nobody in this area would speak English at that time.
What about the horses, David? They must do this trail time and time again.
Well, they're not too bad at all, no, because I mean they're getting to gallop and jump the jumps and do all the bits and pieces like that, and they've got the best bit to come yet, which is going down the beach.
Oh, great! Come on.
And they love the
That'll
beach.
cool them off a bit, won't it?
Oh, it certainly will, yeah.
Horses are natural swimmers, and crossing the bay we head for the hill fort of Donad, marking the end of our two-day trail. It's a sacred site. The first kings of Scotland were crowned here.
Good girl, come on.
You didn't expect to go rock climbing today, did you? I'm sure it's all good for his thighs, isn't it, boy?
Talking about thighs, how are yours doing after a couple of days of riding?
Sore, but it's well worth suffering to get up here.
This is very historical up here too. This is where the kingdom of Dalriada started. It's where the kings were crowned. You can see the footprint down there. We'll get off and have a look at it.
So what have we actually got?
Well, all that's left really is this footprint. They would stand with their foot in there, face Ben Cruachan, and they would be anointed king.
I'll give it a try.
Well, you could
hey,
do it.
look
Look
at that for
That's
a perfect
perfect.
fit.
Absolutely perfect.
So what do you think it means then?
It means you're going to be the next Queen of Scotland, obviously.
So how many miles have we done?
We've done 60 miles in the last 2 days.
No wonder I'm sore.
No, it's not surprising, is it? But it's worth it to come here. And this is the hill where it all started in Scotland.
So the capital of the Scots of Dalriada.
That's it. It all started here.
I like being here, you know,
It's lovely, isn't
in the
it?
sunset.
Beautiful spot.
Yeah.
You know, the ingenuity shown by native people around the world never fails to amaze me, particularly those that live in really remote regions, like the Kalahari Bushmen. So today, what I thought I'd do is show you some really ingenious bushcraft. One of the things I want to show you is how to make a straw for collecting water. For that, I'm going to use a piece of dead elder. This is one of those less pleasant sights we come across in the outdoors all the time these days, bits of wire left behind by agricultural use. But even that can have its uses. One of the most important tools for native people was the digging stick, with which they could lift roots from the ground and find water. And this piece of wood is ideal. It's dead, it's been crowded out by the forest, and yet it's still standing and strong. I've carved this end to a strong, durable point ideal for digging, but I'm going to make it even stronger by hardening it in a fire. To fire harden the stick, I just heat it until it's on the verge of scorching, but not quite. And that'll make the end good and hard and resilient when we're digging in the ground. The nice thing about the elder we gathered earlier is that in the middle it's soft and pithy. And with the piece of wire that I gathered, which I've straightened and heated, I can easily burn out the pith to make a drinking straw. Well, I've burned through the stick from both ends and then cut them off clean. And now I'm just using the wire to tidy up the inside of the stick. Should be just about ready. Yeah, it looks good. I'll show you. And while I'm here, I can use this fire for a little African snack. Now this is a technique that comes from the Kalahari. The Bushmen, without a frying pan, would make an ostrich egg omelette under their fire in a depression like this. Now I've never tried this before, but I thought we'd give it a go. The idea is for the heat of the ground under the fire to cook the omelette from one side, while a little bit of heat from the embers cooks the other side. Let's see how the omelette's doing. Perfectly cooked. Boy, let's try this. Clever fellows, those Kalahari Bushmen. Remember, we always put the fire out and clear it away afterwards. The most amazing technique I know of for finding water is the sip well, and that's where the digging stick is going to come in really handy. It's great for low-lying sandy areas where the soil is moist but not wet enough for water to run and collect in any holes you dig. I'm going to take some grass, just some dry grass, push that down in the bottom of the hole. Then the straw that we made earlier, pack some more grass around the top of that and fill the hole back in. Now this is the clever bit. We suck. This is going to take a few minutes. We're creating a vacuum at the bottom of the hole that's going to draw moisture through the grains of sand and into the hole and eventually up the tube. We're getting water. And although the water may look horribly dark and sandy, it tastes good. And what we do is filter out the sediment before we consumed it. But I tell you what, it must have been an awfully thirsty person who thought this one up. Drinks can like this can be used for fishing, believe it or not. This technique's used all around the world by people who can't afford fishing tackle. The thing about this technique is it's as cheap as fishing can come. For a lure, I'm just going to use a simple little rubber jig like that. It's got a weighted hook, which makes it ideal for casting. But if you didn't have one of these, you could use a spoon. This way of fishing is really good fun.
It's kind of bizarre, but around these parts, there's always someone popping up out of the ground. Something to do with the labyrinth of potholes, caves and lead mines that make up the Derbyshire Peak District. This cave, the Peak Cavern, has been carved out by water and is known locally by the delightful name of the Devil's Arse. It's an amazing looking landscape here. We've got the limestone almost erupting out of the ground.
Yeah, well, when you look at the gorge directly behind me here, I mean, you've got to think of this at one time, all being underneath the ground. That was actually a cave until the last ice age came along, scoured the whole surface off it, and the water dropped down to lower levels. There's one of the old lead mine shafts just over here. The place is obviously riddled with them. Oh yeah, there's a shaft there, behind the back of the hill there. There's going to be, hundreds probably of mine shafts all around there. Lots of them are still open. but a lot of them aren't. I mean, the whole area, the ground we're stood on here, there's mines underneath your very feet.
What part did Peak Cavern play in all this?
Right, well, Peak Cavern, well, if you hadn't got ropes, you couldn't get into the mine. So as soon as vertical mining started, you would obviously need rope to get into the mines.
And that's where the rope makers hung out?
That's where the rope makers came into it, yeah.
How many people would have been making rope down here?
Well, it depends on really the century that they were actually living inside the entrance, because they'd actually live inside here as well. And there was 4 big families inside here, and I say big families, 12 people per unit, and there could have been 40, 50 people living inside here. I know there is 14 sites of dwellings inside the entrance.
Visitors to the cave in the 19th century really knew how to do it in style. Not for them wading through the muck and water. No, they used to get a lift from one of the locals, a kind of thrill ride for the aristocracy. And while they were up here, they used to scribble graffiti on the wall, just so they could leave their mark. OK, Richard, how's the back?
Oh, I'll be all right.
Why on earth do you want to spend all your time crawling about in the mud, hundreds of feet underground?
It's exploration, really. It's like landing on the moon, except you haven't got the expense of a rocket in this case.
I'd like to point out, however, that on the moon there is a little more space. Caves are cold, a constant 7 degrees and full of water, so a wetsuit is essential, as well as a helmet and a lamp, and most importantly, someone who knows what they're doing.
Well, we're going to be all right for a fry-up later, aren't we?
A fry-up later, yeah. I don't think the kind of mushrooms you'd really want to eat. People seem to think that there's no life inside a cave. There is. There's all sorts of things. They've just recently found in other caves around this area a very rare kind of beetle that actually lives underneath all the silt inside here. And it's probably been here since the second glacial melt, so that's 27,000 years ago. It's been living underground in the cave systems and totally evolved in its own species.
By the way, why is it called the Devil's Arse?
Well, when it actually floods, there's lots of trapped air in the system, so what kind of sound does trapped air make?
Yeah.